So ever since the very end of the sequel trilogy, we have seen that the fans have remained very much divided, especially ever since the very end of The Rise of Skywalker and how things left off with the character of Rey, and of course Palpatine, etc. And we already know that John and Dave are really trying to fix the overall broken pieces of the franchise and bring things back together again, whatever they can do, whatever kind of resources that they have. They want to use that to kind of utilize this way of reuniting the fan base once more. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the kind and great support. Now, one thing that, of course, Daisy Ridley has been very honest about as of late is her overall problems with the sequel trilogy when it came to pretty much, becoming a part of the actual movies and really experiencing all the different things on set, all the creative differences, all the problems that Kathleen Kennedy caused over the years. And lately she's been a lot more vocal and honest about what really went down behind the scenes during the events of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, stuff like that. And as of late, Daisy has really been putting Kathleen Kennedy in the hot seat, putting her on the spot, really unveiling new truths about her that really aren't all that great at all. And when we look at it like this, alright, we already know that Daisy is still in the talks with John and Dave to come back as a cameo for Rey in the upcoming post-Episode 9 series. We'll talk about that at another point in time. But to me, the most exciting thing about all of this is that it shines a bigger light on Kathleen Kennedy's true nature and exactly how she looks at the fans and how she looks at George Lucas and stuff like that. So let's get right into this. Now, we already know that Daisy, of course, has been very vocal, and of course, with John and Dave preparing to make very big announcements for Star Wars at Celebration this year, in a recent interview that Daisy took part in, she went on to talk more about Kathleen Kennedy and how Lucasfilm operated as a company. Daisy went on to state the following to the fans. The thing that bothered me the most when I was working on the sequels was how Kathy had this strict vision of the films that many of us knew would create problems. She would often tell the crew to J.J. Abrams to never use any of George Lucas's work that he had presented to Disney before the films were even made. In the beginning, George gave us tons of ideas from the scripts of those films, and this was kept at Lucasfilm as a possible reference material to be used. Kathy would often tell creators like JJ and Ryan, as well as Chris and Colin when he was on board, to never touch those treatments of the sequels by George, as she believed that using any Lucas material was going to sabotage the entire trilogy. So once again, this is basically Kathleen Kennedy's mindset that if it's George Lucas, it equals sabotage. Now, I think it's actually quite the reversal. The overall thing that Kathleen Kennedy likes to do is just sabotage the Star Wars franchise, right? I mean, we've seen what she has been saying about the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, that these are two shows that are going to completely disregard any familiar thing that you like about Star Wars, anything related to George Lucas that you like about Star Wars, stuff like that. The fact that she's so motivated to just distance herself from George Lucas, it just tells you a lot about her agenda, about her plans for those two shows, and to be honest with you guys, I'm really not looking forward to those two shows because they're Kathleen Kennedy-driven projects. Let's just be honest about this. And sure, The Acolyte may sound interesting on paper. It's about emerging dark side powers. It's a literal, cat and mouse type of story where it's like a mystery and almost like a mixture of a spy thriller thrown in there as well. It's all about how basically the Sith infiltrate the Jedi Order. And there's going to be a lot of retcons and a lot of resets toward the prequels that will be established in The Acolyte, which is something also that I'm very on edge about. Now that brings us to exactly what Daisy also had to say. That's actually going to come as a surprise. Now, we already know that Kathleen Kennedy has no care in the world for John and Dave's work. I mean, she even said so herself that she felt that John and Dave needed to distance themselves away from George, but, you know, what they want to do is what they want to do. You know, she has no control over that. And that's the good thing that Chapek laid in, is that John and Dave have these privileges, and Kathleen Kennedy has no creative power past Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. Moving on. She goes on to say, I will never forget that some of George's treatments involved Luke being the main character in episode 7. This was accepted by Michael Arndt, the original writer, to which Kathy came in later on and fell into serious creative differences with him for using some of Lucas's work. It was quite sad, honestly, but this is the business that we are in, I guess. It's just terrible at times. It really was something that I found offense to, even just as an actress myself. It truly was a horrible experience to see his work shot down many times. So, Michael Arndt, alright, was going to use, or was using, a lot of George Lucas's treatments. And for doing that, he got fired. He got let go. He fell into creative differences with Kathy, and he was let go. That's when JJ came into the picture. Alright? I don't know if you guys remember Michael Arndt, but he really wanted to make Luke the center of the story in The Force Awakens. He really wanted to make Luke really appear right in the beginning and become the main hero, or the main protagonist, working along with Rey. And I think that would have been beautiful and amazing. But, you know, Kathleen Kennedy wanted nothing to do with that at all. So, Daisy really putting it out there that this is basically her agenda, and it always was her agenda, to really kind of just throw all George's treatments into the trash bin and close the lid on it forever. That's basically what her agenda was. So that brings us to exactly where we are today. Thankfully, John and Dave, they have a lot on their plate. They're working hand in hand with, you know, other creators out there. They're hiring new creatives to come on board. In fact, Peyton Reed, the director of Mando Season 2's finale, is going to be a big deal in Mando Season 4, so looking forward to that. There's a lot of great things happening with Star Wars right now. And I've said this many times, it's going to take a lot of convincing, a lot of successful, consistent shows in a row to really convince the fans that it's back, that Star Wars is going to thrive again. And I trust in John and Dave that they will establish that this year and next year, without a doubt. 100%. So, anyways, given that we have Daisy here really putting Kathleen Kennedy on the spot, really exposing a lot of things about her overall outlook on George, her outlook on the fans, on the Skywalkers, and just how the Star Wars philosophy was so embedded by George's mind and what he believed in, that Kathleen Kennedy just wants to rip apart piece by piece. So overall, guys, you know, like I say, I'm really intrigued to see what you guys have to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon we hear them moans again.